how do we break that culture? It's the church. The church really being the church. So, God's mission is ecclesia, called that assembly, and this is where the maturity comes in, folks. Okay? The maturity of Christ in you, the hope of glory. Isn't that awesome? So this is what it is. It's the maturity of Christ in you, the hope of glory. And this right here, that word you, look this up, do a study sometimes in Scripture. That's not individual. That's collective. It's the you. And the glory, that weightiness, the very presence of God, the maturity of His presence, or His very nature. Because we're going right here, right? Where we're going is transformation and conformity to the image of Christ. You think we have a little bit of room for improvement, saints? We still in the potter's wheel, you think? So this is why, if you look, because I've not broke this down like this before, I'm doing it now. This is why I want to really hit Romans 12. If it's just for me, because I'm a desperate man, because guys, I'm bumping my head all the time. The Lord's done a lot of work in me, He really has. But there's still some areas of flat-out immaturity. And I am convinced that when I hang out with Audrey, God's going to get some heavy lifting done in my heart. As we know each other and trust each other. And as we, Michelle and I, we confide and we serve and we help and we got each other's backs covered. In marriage with my wife and I, that character is being developed in me and how I am, developing the fruit of the Spirit. Because fruit is what? Grown. Okay? So that's what I wanted to do this morning, or this afternoon now, is I'm always in a beeline for this. You'll be talking to me in 50 years. Is Jeff Burrow still on trajectory? Because I don't know anything else more important. Because I really believe this, saints. Everything else, we get this down and understand the grace of God. Because it's not a trap. We got to get that straight. When we get this down, that I am aiming perfectly, and as my aiming or my trajectory, how do I actually take one step in front of the other? It's with my sister, Michelle. And the very fact that God has established a body, which is found here in Romans 12, is what He does to day by day seeing the character and the nature of Jesus develop in us. But we cannot go after this being principle if we don't understand internal transformation. This must be the engine, saints. And this works also by relationship. Okay? That's how it works with God. And this down here is relationship with each other. Make sense? So what we're trying to accomplish, I believe, if there's any incongruency of quality between this and this, we need to get back in the potter's wheel. Because I believe the quality of this relationship with God is the power to have good relationship with each other. Make sense? So all that said, now I want to chew on. Anybody? Okay. So I like this little whiteboard. I've not done this much, but I think it's neat to be able to have a visual. Can you guys at least read my nasty writing? So, but what I want to start doing is I want to now break down Romans 12 from the perspective, I think where it starts, verse 1 and 2. Because we don't have that going on in reality. Because here is Paul, and he says, I plead with you, I beg of you, by the mercy of God, to present your bodies, or your natural man, as a living sacrifice, right? And I believe he's saying that because he knows the potential hindrance in our lives. And if the natural man is not, I'll say it to you this way, if Galatians 2:20 is not being applied, I'm crucified with Christ, no longer I who live, but it's Christ who lives in me. In the life I now live, I live by faith in the Son of God who loves me and gave himself for me. If we don't have that actually working in us, it will sabotage our relationships. And that's the biggest thing in the heart of God. Just remember what is eternal, saints. Relationship is what is eternal. Our cars, our houses. I mean, listen up to this. This is very important. Because we understand and invest in what is eternal, at least a lion portion, I believe at the end of the day, we're going to have a level of fulfillment. But this is the thing, is we cannot take our cars and our houses and our possessions. There's only one thing we can take into eternity. And what is that? Relationships. This is what's eternal. So what does the enemy attack the most? Is rampant. I mean, we're right now, saints, we are renting our house out down here, right? And I'll say the majority of the people, 80%, have been divorced, and when they want to move their girlfriend in. I'm like, I have to have, every single one I have an opportunity to witness Jesus to them. I'm saying 80%. This is really the culture we live in. That's why we must, as it says right here, it's a called out people. We can't just be succumb to this. There's no condemnation, but we have to live differently. And I believe how I can live differently is the Lord gives me tools. And the tools is ecclesia, which is related to our relationships and the quality thereof. Okay? Making a lot of sense, I believe. So this is really, really important. There's a broken society, and you, saints, are the salt, the light, and the city on the hill that cannot be hidden. You are the influence. You are the remedy that God has brought into this life to help people in their pain. I'm going to say it again. You are the remedy that God has brought into this life to help people in their pain. And it can start with us. If I'm consumed by my own pain and distracted, or I'm just in the woes me's, how can I ever help anybody else? Saints, I have to embrace the maturity of the Lord, because this is it's bigger than us. This picture is bigger than us. It's like there's almost 7 billion people on this planet, and they need someone to represent Christ well. And I believe the only way we do that is by engaging people relationally. Okay? So, we're going to go into Romans 12 now and talk about some relational dynamics. So, it talks about initially, we are living sacrifice, and it says this: holy and acceptable to God. So, hear this. Us being a living sacrifice, laying our lives on the altar. It's not about, it's like when Christ at the Garden of Gethsemane said, Lord, take take this cup from me. Because he knew the cup of suffering, right? But he said, nonetheless, not my will, but your will be done. That's picking up our cross, I believe. It's like that we have this living sacrifice dynamic, and I'm not saying I have this mastered. This is why we're after the mission of God here, because I really believe, before I die, I want a higher percentage of the internal transformation and conformity to Christ. I believe, God forbid, I stay at a spiritual D for the entirety of my life. Not even a passing grade. It's kind of a rude example, but we'll call it a spiritual C. Just barely passing. We know the blood of Jesus is enough, amen. But I want to be a spiritual A+. And what that really looks like practically, just loving well. Because love's a big word. I believe love has peace wrapped up in it, and joy wrapped up in it. I believe, love has, just the goodness and the kindness and the gentleness and the faithfulness, all the fruit of the Spirit. It's all wrapped up in it, being long-suffering and patient and all these wonderful attributes. So, I believe we can up our game by the grace of God. Do you believe that? Do I get any amens in this house?
Amen.
We can up our game. Let me be real clear on what upping our game means. Upping our game is a surrendered heart. Because we can't manufacture it. That's why it's kind of tricky. See, you can do a little bit better in religion in the sense of, you kind of have some perimeters in the box to kind of operate in. Here's my law. But it's so interesting with pure Christianity. Yes, He's the God of the principle. He is the God of order. But He didn't say, hey, go and just fulfill law and be principled and be orderly. He says, no, I want you to surrender to the God of the order, the principle, and the law, and let me live my life through you. That's what gets tricky.
I think I did it backwards.
And so at the end of the day, He's looking for partnership, saints. Isn't that a beautiful thing, though? That's why He says, He is weary, heavy laden. Come to me and I'll give you rest. He said, learn of me. It's very interesting. He says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Why would He say that? Well, traditionally, they would, because they were an agrarian society, they'd have yoke of oxen. They would actually yoke up a younger, less mature oxen with an older and more mature oxen to yoke up and to work with. And the older would teach the younger. Christ says, do that with me. Because the older, the more mature, did the heavy lifting. But we're still there partnering with Him. So that's what He wants to be the engine of our lives. And that's the difference between pure Christianity, I believe, and just religious, just effort and gyration. Obviously, a lot of it's shame-driven. A lot of it's condemnation-driven. And how good's good enough? We're always going to fall short. So when we understand the engine, which is Jesus Himself, that we're yoked up with, that's how we see right here our behavior and ethics curtailed or changed or look more like Jesus by yoking up with Him and by virtue of relationship. Because the moment, I'm telling you, this has been like a real weird trap. The moment I try to be a good Christian, it seems like everything assaults me. I derailed, and the very thing I'm aiming to accomplish goes somewhere else. It's like it falls off the rails, and you live like in this kind of Romans 7. I encourage you guys to read Romans 7. I do the things, he says, it's like, I aim to do the things I want to do, but I do not do. The things I do not want to do, I do. It's like he had some insight. But I believe when we're yoked up with Jesus and have a relationship with God, this is the engine that we can actually treat each other more lovingly. And I believe the greatest enemy that we have in actually handling each other lovingly and with kindness and actually serving. And as the word talks about preferring even others higher than yourselves. How in the world do we do that? We only can do it by relationship with Jesus. And we allow him to internally transform us. And in that eternal transformation, I believe the mission of God is enacted together as a body to walk it out and to prove out the quality of our character in Jesus.